Dear friends, September 5th is a great day for all of us. It is the day we celebrate as Teachers' Day. And this day we remember fondly Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, the former president, politician, scholar, academician, philosopher, and Bharat Ratna recipient, Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, on whose birthday we consider as Teachers' Day. He was born in 1888 and rose up to India's president's post. A great thinker, a great educationist who helped the country to become acknowledging the contribution of the teachers. And today, when we celebrate this feast, it is apt that we accept the role of our teachers in our lives. Definitely, teachers play an extraordinary part of our lives. They are the people who educate the society, change the society, bring new vision to the society, and impart their knowledge upon impressionable years. Teachers matter in so many different ways. They are the reasons why we have engineers, doctors, pilots, and many more professionals. In fact, all the professions are created by the teachers. What we learn from them at a very young age will most likely to stay for the rest of our lives. And we know that their job is hard at this time. We see many of them are faced with problems. Many of them are misunderstood. Many teachers find it difficult to cope up with these days, the problems they are faced with. Sometimes they also need a little more motivation. They need encouragement. They need to boost their energy to continue their passion and this profession as a service. And today, when we celebrate the Teachers' Day, I would like to bring a few quotations, marvelous quotations that acknowledges the contribution of the teachers, that acknowledges their tremendous efforts that are put on building up this nation. And therefore, a few quotations will be apt. Arne Duncan, he says, wherever you find something extraordinary, you will find the fingerprints of a great teacher. Because without a great teacher, nobody can be great. Joyce Meyer says, teachers can change lives with just the right mix of chalk and challenges. Albert Einstein, the great scientist of our era, our time, he says, it is a supreme art of the teacher to awaken joy in creative expression and knowledge. Malala Yousafzai, Malala says, let us remember, one book, one pen, one child and a teacher can change the world. Brad Henry, he says, a good teacher can inspire hope, ignite the imagination, and instill a love of learning. Solomon Otis, he says, education is the key to success in life, and teachers make a lasting impact in the life of their students. But it is very important to read the quote on education by Bill Gates. Bill Gates says, technology is a tool. In terms of getting the kids working together and motivating them, the teacher is the most important. I think very often we forget the role of the teacher, especially in the era of technology. Especially in this pandemic period, we have seen, we are all talking about online classes and digital classes, remote classes, etc. And very often we forget that teachers are so important. This technological help is only a help, only an aid. You cannot take away the role of the teachers in the lives of the students. Mustafa Kemal says, a good teacher is like a candle. I think it's a beautiful imagery. A good teacher is like a candle. It consumes itself to light the way for others. And that you can imagine a candle is lit up, it slowly, it gives light to everybody, but it ends its life slowly. I think a teacher is like that. He simply gives whatever is knowledge, the wisdom, the time, everything for their students and their upliftment, their empowerment, their growth. If you have to put up someone on a pedestal, put teachers. They are society's heroes. Guy Kawasaki says, it is important to note this quotation. If you have to put someone on a pedestal, not the politicians, not the philosophers, not the bureaucrats, we need to put teachers on the high pedestal, because they are the contributors. They form the young minds. William Glaser says, when you study great teachers, you will learn much more from their caring and hard work than from their style. Because the process the teachers prepare is more important, more worth. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, he says, I am a teacher. It's just how I define myself. A good teacher is not someone who gives the answers out to their kids, but is understanding of needs and challenges and gives tools to help other people succeed. That is the way I see myself. So whatever it is that I will do eventually after politics, it will have to do a lot with teaching. That means, even though he is a political leader, the prime minister of a nation, he says, that is not my identity. My identity always remains as a teacher. It's very interesting to learn. Nicholas Sparks says, teachers inspire you. They entertain you. And you end up learning a ton even when you don't know it. Charles Kulath, he says, good teachers know how to bring out the best in students. I think this is very interesting, because we are not teaching a one size fit for all model. We are teaching the individual student. You know, Saint Ignatius, the founder of the Jesuits, always used to say one Latin word for teaching, that is called cura personalis, care of the individual. We need to care individual, because in 500 years ago Saint Ignatius identified that each individual is unique. His trait is unique. His aptitude is unique. His intelligence is unique. And therefore we cannot teach everybody on the same manner. Therefore, cura personalis, care of the total person, intellectual, psychological, moral, spiritual, physical. Every aspect has to be taken into consideration. Dan Rather, he says, the dream begins with a teacher who believes in you, who tugs and pushes and leads you to the next plateau, sometimes poking you with a sharp stick called truth. Alexander the Great, which we cannot ignore his quotation, Alexander the Great always says this quotation, and we always remember, I am indebted to my father for living, but to my teacher for living well. This is something great quotation. I am indebted to my father for living, but to my teacher for living well. Confucius, the famous Chinese philosopher, he says, the master said, a true teacher is one who, keeping the past alive, is also able to understand the present. Mark Van Doren says, the art of teaching is the art of assisting discovery. We are going to see in the new education policy a lot of stress is given on teachers, their continued assessment, their training, their updating, their managerial skills and their empowerment at all levels is given in the new education policy. And I think it is important. That's what he says. The art of teaching is the art of assisting discovery. We must make people to discover the best in that person. As Vivekananda says, same to sing. Education is bringing out what is already in man. Alexandra K. Trensford says, the best teachers are those who show you where to look, but don't tell you what to see. A teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where his influence stops. It's a famous quotation from Henry Adams. C.S. Lewis, the famous thinker, he says, the task of the modern educator is not to cut down jungles, but to irrigate deserts, create new things, not simply destroying or disregarding people. No. Bodhidharma, a very famous Buddhist scripture, says, only one person in a million becomes enlightened without a teacher's help. Majority of the people, almost all of us, need a teacher to get enlightened. If you don't have a teacher, you can't have a disciple, Dallas Willard says. Roger Moore says, teach love, generosity, good manners, and some of that will drift from the classroom to the home, and who knows, the children will be educating the parents. And I think this is happening in our own society. Some of us have experienced beautifully this point, that students who are going to the classrooms come back and teach the families about human rights. When we teach human rights in the classrooms, we see children come back and teach the parents, question them, enable them to understand and look in a new way. Michael Morpugro says, it is the teacher that makes the difference, not the classroom. I believe strongly this. It's the teacher that makes the difference, not the classroom. Because classroom can be so furnished, so well prepared, etc. But suppose you don't have a teacher, it will be like a tire without air. Or, it is like a pencil without a lid inside. We need good teachers. And we have seen teachers who are teaching in the open ground, for example, under the tree and under the bridges, etc. They are teaching so well. And students are so much influenced. Okay, William Arthur Ward, another education, he talks about a mediocre teacher tells. A good teacher explains. The superior teacher demonstrates. The great teacher inspires. St. Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of Jesuits again, he said a teacher must be an inspiring person. Actually, the duty of the teacher is to inspire people. Every teacher, every student who is sitting in the class must have the desire to become like their teachers. John Wooden says, I think the teaching profession contributes more to the future of our society than any other single profession. Now today people all talk about politicians changing the country, etc. I always believed, and I still strongly believe, that teachers can touch the future. Teachers are the makers of the nation. And therefore Albert Moeller says, every great leader is a great teacher. And the greatest leaders seize every opportunity to teach well, not misleading people. Benjamin Franklin, of course, we cannot ignore him, another great thinker. He says, tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn, and a good teacher will involve. Cheryl Richardson says, your best teacher is the person offering you your greatest challenge. Because His desire is that you bring out your inherent potentialities. The book of Deuteronomy in the Bible, it says, let my teaching fall like rain, and my words descend like dew, like showers on new grass, like abundant rain on tender plants. Remember, Bible always talk the wisdom as a gift of God, and therefore teachers are the persons who are standing in the place of God. And that is the same in Indian tradition also. A guru or acharya means who stands in the place of God, who is invisible. God is invisible, but visible manifestation of that God is we find in teachers. Again, the Proverbs, again from Bible, it says, give instruction to a wise man, and he will be still wiser. Teach righteous man, and he will increase in learning. Proverbs 9:9. Aristotle, the great philosopher, he says, those that know do, those that understand teach. So a teacher must be an understanding person. Again, Aristotle says, the one exclusive sign of thorough knowledge is the power of teaching. If a person is able to teach well, that means he knows, he has the knowledge and wisdom. The great Paulo Coelho says, teaching is only demonstrating that it is possible. Learning is making it possible for yourself. A good teacher, like a good entertainer, first must hold his audience attention. Then he can teach his lesson. John Henry Clark says, and I say in the classrooms, when I give sessions and so on, I tell, see, if you pour water on a bucket upside down, it will go out. So the primary duty of the teacher is to keep the bucket in the right manner, so that whatever you pour will go inside. The receptivity has to be created. Attention has to be drawn. That means your classes must be innovative, creative, and with a lot of humor and fun. Our own Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, the great thinker, scientist, former president of India, and I believe that he's a great teacher. He says, great teachers emanate out of knowledge, passion, and compassion. You need to have a passion to teach. Bob Talbot says, teaching kids to count is fine, but teaching them what counts is best. Bill Bowerman says, a teacher is never too smart to learn from his pupil. Even we can learn from our own students. So what does a good teacher do? Create tension, but just the right amount. Donald Norman says. Bruce Nauman says, a good teacher is like a good artist. They go right to the most difficult part of whatever is going on. Eva Amorai says, a good teacher who can take this zero pay and help kids develop physically, emotionally, socially, and literally an angel. Eva Amorai, this quotation again I say, Saint Ignatius of Loyola in our Ratio Studiorum, and also the IPP and the characteristics of Jesuit education. Everywhere we have said it very clearly through the experience of more than 450 years of Jesuit experience. We say all-round development or integral development is the aim of education. Karl Menninger says, what the teacher is more important than what he teaches. It's like Francis of Assisi. He says, my life is my message. Mahatma Gandhi, he says, my life is my message. The older I got, the smarter my teachers became. Because I started learning about my teachers, and I see my teachers are much, much greater. I have a greater appreciation for my teachers now. Alay Carter says so. Gail Godwin says, good teaching is 1/4 preparation and 3/4 pure theatre. How you put up, how you impart this knowledge is more important. The way your gestures, your sounds, your dramatization of that subject in the classroom, and taking the interest of the children for bettering their learning capacity, etc., is more important. That's why Gail Godwin's quotation is very, very important for us. Robert Brown says the average teacher explains complexity, the gifted teacher reveals simplicity. It's not that talking about big things above the heads of the students make you a better teacher, not at all. Even the greater things, the difficult things you must make so simple. That is your ability. B.F. Skinner says, education is what survives when what has been learned has forgotten. Dr. William L.E. Channing says, it's a greater work to educate a child in the true and larger sense of the word than to rule a state. David Hasselhoff, he says, teaching is an essential profession, the one that makes all other professions possible. As I told already, a teacher makes all other professions possible. Amos Bronston Alcott says, the true teacher defends his pupils against his own personal influence. He inspires self-trust. He guides their eyes from himself to the spirit that quickens him. He will have no disciples. Khalil Gibran, the famous singer again and a writer, he says, the teacher who is indeed wise does not bid you to enter the house of his wisdom, but rather leads you to the household of your mind. Khalil Gibran. I think this is a great meaningful quotation for me. Alice Wellington says, the test of a good teacher is not how many questions you can ask his pupils that they will answer readily, but how many questions he inspires them to ask him, which finds it hard to answer. See, creating curiosity, as I said in the beginning. A teacher must enable the students to ask questions. That is an ability of a good teacher. We must become what we wish to teach. Nathaniel Brandon says, we must become what we wish to teach. There should be a harmony between what you preach and what you think and what you do. Teaching is the greatest act of optimism, says Colleen Wilcox. William Butler Yeats, the famous poet, says, education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. And Rooney says, most of us end up with no more than 5 or 6 people who remember us. Teachers have thousands of people who remember them for the rest of their life. I remember once I went to a place where the old Jesuits were living in a house. There, one of the person who was old age, sickly, was a former principal of a prestigious college in India. And all students, whoever passes through that city, they make a point to visit him. And there was another person who is all through his life was a formator. And he was telling me, what to do, Father Sunny? Nobody comes to visit us because he was the principal, he was educationist. Educationists are always visited by their students. And I think it is true. Teachers will be remembered by so many. And Nikos Kazantzakis, the famous, Nikos Kazantzakis, one who wrote the famous drama on Jesus and so on, he says, ideal teachers are those who use themselves as bridges over which they invite their students to cross. Then, having facilitated their crossing, joyfully collapse, encouraging them to create bridges of their own. Scott Hayden says, teachers have 3 loves: love of learning, love of learners, and the love of bringing the first 2 loves together. I think it's a very, very interesting quote. And Steve Perry says, teaching is the highest art. Before the doctor, there was a teacher. And finally, I end with the famous Montessori, Maria Montessori, who introduced the Montessori courses for children, etc. She says, the greatest sign of success for a teacher is to be able to say, the children are now working as if I did not exist. That means after teaching, you leave to the students. They themselves make their lives better for the future. I think these quotations are so favorite and so touching, so inspiring for me as a teacher. And on this Teachers' Day, I dedicate all these quotes for our teachers in the country who are really making our nation progressive, our nation better for the future, and making an empowered nation. I think without teacher, no nation can survive, especially a nation like India. Happy Teachers' Day, and have a wonderful day on September 5th. Thank you very much, my dear teachers, and I acknowledge at this juncture the great contribution you are all contributing to our students, our society, our nation, especially the Jesuit school, Jesuit teachers. You are in large number, spreading across the nation, across South Asia, and all over the world. And I thank at this juncture all your great contribution to make our India, our country, our world better one. Thank you very much, and God bless all of you on this day of Teachers' Day. Thank you.